Now on 5, this week's big idea that changed the world, Islam. Here with a personal view is former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto. This program contains images of conflict and its aftermath.
This is the story of an idea which first emerged 1400 years ago. It arose in what was then an unimportant part of the world. So captivating was this idea that it swept across countries, empires, and continents. It inspired poets, scientists, inventors, and explorers who took its message of tolerance and intellectual curiosity to the ends of the earth. This idea is also one of the world's great religions. It is Islam. My name is Benazir Bhutto. I became the first female leader of an Islamic country when I was elected Prime Minister of Pakistan in 1988. I decided to go into politics after my father was executed on trumped-up charges by a despot. My father, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was the first democratically elected president of Pakistan. He was a reformer, not just as a politician, but within our own family too. I loved my father dearly. I loved him unconditionally and he loved me unconditionally. I believe he was a very special man to trust his daughter, to have faith in her and to send her abroad for education. Even the women in my family opposed the move. They were worried because they said, who will marry her? But my father would not be deterred and he said, my daughter shall have the same rights as my sons. My father was a progressive, tolerant Muslim leader who was inspired by his faith. The paradox is that he was hunted down and murdered by men who also claimed to be inspired by Islam. This divide between two very different approaches to my religion has torn Pakistan apart, and it hasn't stopped there. The same conflict which engulfed my country has spilled across the world with catastrophic consequences for us all. And Pakistan has been accused of playing a central role in all of this. To understand how this happened, we need to explore my family and my country's history, and the history of my religion itself. The story of Islam starts in the 7th century, in a trading center in a relatively unimportant part of what is now Saudi Arabia, Mecca. At that time, every man and woman owed their allegiance to the tribe they were born into. And women were held to be of so little value that they had no role to play in society. Mecca was also an important pagan center where people would come from all over to worship a whole range of gods. It was a world of superstition where seers would claim to mediate between gods and humans. But all that was about to change. Almost 1400 years ago, a trader became disenchanted with this divided society and went to the hills. While he was meditating, he had a revelation. The Archangel Gabriel appeared before him and told him to recite the words of God. This trader's name was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him, and for Muslims, he was the last of the prophets. The Prophet began to spread his message, and the words revealed to him were written down in what would become the Quran. It is this which would be at the heart of the new religion, Islam. Over the next 22 years, the Holy Prophet would transform Arabia. He taught that none of the pagan deities were real gods. Instead, there was just one God, Allah, and every man and woman was accountable to him. The Prophet also preached equality. Let's remember that when the message of Islam came, it said that men and women are equal. But that was at a time when in different parts of the world, including in Europe, women were considered the property of men, and they were not accepted individually in their own right. Secondly, Islam was very far-sighted in that it gave women the right to divorce and the right to child custody, the right to alimony. Islam said that a woman can choose who she wishes to marry, and 3 times on the time of the marriage the woman has to be asked in public with witnesses that, do you agree to this marriage? And she may say yes, but she's asked again to give her the confidence to say no if she doesn't want to do it. So in that sense, Islam is very empowering to women. Within 140 years, the Islamic empire had spread from Spain to Western China. One reason for its success was that it was the only religion to offer a practical guide to how to live your life. A moral code which encompassed everything from the personal to the political and the religious. The word Islam means to submit, and every man and woman was encouraged to follow its most important injunction. Submit to the will of the one and only God. I was taught that it's important to help the people who are weak, to be hospitable, that even people who are your enemies, if they come to your home, you must be merciful towards them. So in that way, I was taught that if we lead good lives, then on the day of judgment, God will reward us with a place in heaven. Early Christian philosophers tended to focus on the spiritual world. They believed that the physical world was inherently corrupt. Muslim thinkers, however, focused on both. The quest for knowledge is obligatory in every Muslim, ordains Islam. As a result, while Christian Europe languished in the Dark Ages, Arabs were making spectacular advances in maths, astronomy, the arts, physics and philosophy. And the words we use today, like algebra and alchemy, all come from the discoveries of these early Arab scientists. For the next 4 centuries, the Islamic empire was held up as the model to which the rest of the world should aspire. Then something appalling would happen. In 1099, Christian crusaders from Europe attacked Jerusalem. It would be the first of many clashes between the East and the West, between Islam and Christianity. But it also brought to the fore divisions within the Muslim world. On the one hand were men like Saladin who believed, as the Quran says, that the ink of the scholar is more holy than the blood of the martyr. But, as with every other major religion, there were also extremists who distorted Islam to justify violence and indiscriminate slaughter. And foremost amongst them was a group who terrorized the Islamic world in the 12th century. They believed in murder as a political weapon, often dispensing with their victims at Friday prayers in the mosque for maximum publicity. They were called the assassins. And tales of the atrocities they committed were legendary throughout the world. To be killed on a mission, they believed, was not just an honor, but would lead them to becoming martyrs. The assassins are the spiritual ancestors of today's Islamic terrorists. Men who would respond to any perceived threat with violence. And the breeding ground for many men like these would unfortunately be my own country.